All right, 49ers got a win today. I think one of the themes of the season is already kind of clarifying for me. It's going to be catching breaks. Last year, they missed opportunity. They didn't catch breaks, and they didn't make their own breaks. And this year's going to be catching the breaks that are out of your control and making the breaks that are in your control. All gas, no breaks. We'll get to that in a second. But I was in the car, and I was listening to the radio, and I heard Matt Mayoko on KNBR, and he said that the word on the street at the league meetings is that the 49ers are going to avoid an international game this year. An international game is one of the things that could have made this very beneficial last place schedule more challenging for the 49ers. If there were an international game for them, it would have been probably the Browns game. The Browns host an international game this year at Tottenham. And so while the Niners may still in 2026 end up in Mexico, Matt suggested the Rams, by the way, in 26 host a game in Australia. They avoid it this year. That's a break. Now, there are some things about their schedule, the road games you don't love, the amount of games on artificial surface, New Orleans on artificial, Houston on artificial, Indy on artificial, and of course the field that the Giants play on, the last field the Niners want to see. But that's significant for them. It's significant. Last year there was times you look at the schedule when it came out, you go, oh, well, that's a bad stretch, right? Like Green Bay, Buffalo back-to-back. So it'll be interesting when the schedule comes out and we see the order these games are in. If there's anything that stands out as a particularly tough stretch, they end up with, New York and Tampa back-to-back or something like that. But for those of you listening, the home games, the schedule's the opponents we know. The home games, Atlanta, Carolina, Chicago, Jags, Titans. Remember, the Niners have more road games than home games this year. So those are their non-divisional home games. Their non-divisional road games, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, the Giants, the Texans, the Colts, and the Browns. So if you're going to be bad, if you're going to be a 6-win team, then at least take advantage of what you get. Right? What do you get? You get an easier schedule. I hesitate to use the word easy, but you get an easier schedule and you get a good draft pick. So nail the 11th pick and take advantage of the fact that you don't have the schedule you had the year before. So some of it's out of your control, some of it's in your control, and obviously the divisional opponents. But I do think listening to Kyle Shanahan today, one of the themes, or on Tuesday, one of the themes I think that's developing for this group is kind of this get back to basics hunger. He said two things that I want to address. One, talking about Robert Saleh. Kyle Shanahan said, going through this with Saleh the first time, so building the program the first time around, we came in, we took over, our defense was ranked 32nd, having to build it up through a couple of years, get it to where it was in 19, and a couple of years really was one of the best, if not the best defense in the league. And then watching him do it with another team over these past 3 years and then bringing him back, the experience he has with that, the experience we have doing this together, feel fortunate to get him back into the building. I think listening to Kyle talk, and then something that Brock said I'll get to, I know there's, the word I've been using a lot this offseason, consternation, and there was understandably a lot about this roster. But I do think there's a level of excitement that he has in getting a reset and having Saleh back there to do what the one thing I'll say at this point about Kyle, he's one of the high level there are criticisms that are certainly fair of him, but he's one at an incredibly high level. In my mind, he's proven to be one of the best coaches in the league. And he's built it from nothing. So he's got to do that again. Not quite nothing. They've got a good core here, but he's built it up before. He's come off of losing seasons multiple times. And to me, he gets credit for that. Now, two things that he said give you an idea kind of how he's looking at it and why it is, admittedly, there is building that has to go on this year. What I look at here is not necessarily season expectations. I think about how good we can get in the draft. All right, so you got to take advantage there. That's on you. How many people we can add. Then you try to build through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's about practicing, getting back to just focusing on that, not focusing on trying to make up for a Super Bowl loss or trying to make up for anything, It's about becoming the best football team you can be and nothing else. I think there's a lot of feeling in that. Like some of those words, it's about being the best team you can be, sound like coach speak, cliche, whatever. It's not. I think it when you are trying to make up for losing the Super Bowl and you put all your eggs in the basket, if we have to do it this year, right now, go back and win the Super Bowl, you are in a way losing the fundamental that every coach builds a program around, which is, yeah, that's the ultimate goal, but it's just about today. And then it's about today. And then it's about today. And then it's about today. And I don't know if it's I don't know what exactly the punishment is for not being that fundamental, but it really is kind of it's a go for broke mentality that can snowball on you. You know, when the goal is that big, the failures are so much heavier. And I do think, I don't blame them. I would have encouraged them to do the same thing, but you lose your fundamentals a little bit as an operation, I think, when you go about it that way. I hear a guy who's a little inspired. And I think, you know, we talk about like a hot seat's not the right word, but is there extra pressure on him? Yes, but I don't think it's organizational because I think Jed York, they're going to pay Brock. Like they fully understand it's a process. I think Jed gets that. I want to get back to work more now than ever than I probably have in a long time, says Shanahan. I can't wait till our players get back. I feel like we've been away too long. Having all January off was different. It was nice to get a little rest, but we're itching to get back to phase one. I think we'll have a hell of a turnout of the guys. We'll get back to work and go into week one confident as hell that we can win that game. You know, this goes back to, I pulled this like last week. I didn't play it yet. Maybe some of you have seen it by now, but I know there was some attention on Brock Purdy.
So we came back just on one
appearance last week. Brock Purdy did this podcast, Built for More, which you can go watch on YouTube, the whole thing. But I haven't had a chance to talk. I thought this was interesting insight.
So we came back just on one 2 years ago, went to the Super Bowl, fell short of it. And then last year, man, guys were tired. Like that season, dude, is no joke. And when you go from July of training and everything all the way to the end of February, and then you really get 5 weeks off or so and you got to report back, and then you're going again. Yep. It's like, dude, guys are tired. They're still beat up. Their bodies, for these guys that are getting older, like it's not easy. And then last year we just had a lot of things go crazy in a wire, like with injuries.
Yeah. So we had a year, he's saying we had a year when we needed every break because our margin was so thin because we were worn out and they didn't get the breaks. So, you know, are they going to be healthier this year? We talked about this. They were one of the least healthy teams in the league last year. The Lions, by the way, the least, and they still won. But are you going to be healthier this year? Maybe one of the considerations is you should be because you're more rested. You know, you hope that's one of the breaks they get. Now, the Robert Saleh, all gas, no breaks, you're going to have to create. They've got I think a group of young players that came in last year, like Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa, who create a certain level of juice and hunger and energy. And you're not back at square one. You know, when you pay a quarterback, whatever they're going to pay him, 50 plus million, you're not at square one. But I think there probably is a level of, it's why, you know, somebody starts a company, they sell it off, they start another. For some people, it's the build. And you'd rather just be at the top. But I do get a sense, I thought Kyle gave off this, and some of the stuff he said, a real energy of being fired up about the opportunity to build it back up again this year. And whatever that turns into, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can ever, if a team is going to have a baseline floor of competitiveness and they have high-end talent, we'll see what the draft brings. I don't think you can write a team off from being able to compete for a championship. Like Washington didn't get close necessarily. Getting blown out in the NFC Championship game isn't almost winning the Super Bowl. But that was a team nobody would have thought at the beginning of this time last year was going to have a chance to really compete at a high level, and they did. So I don't see, when you combine it with the schedule, the talent, if they, and it's a big if, but if they do good things in the draft, I think Shanahan, Saleh, Purdy, maybe there's a little rejuvenating element of having so much time off. I sense a hunger here that gives me it gives me some optimism on this group.